So for those of us in the US that are familiar with 16 valves that came to us originally with sys injection, mechanical fuel injection, for those that aren't familiar, we're not used to seeing such a cool updated OEM 16 valve engine that had electronic fuel injection on it from the factory. So obviously I've only seen this up close for a couple minutes here, but already there's a lot of differences you can see. The intake is still a two-piece design, but it's a lot different. You're hiding an actual, real deal fuel rail behind this and injectors and whatnot, rather than that fruity mechanical fuel injection rig. We already talked about the differences in the electrical plug that are on the side here. The distributor is a 90-degree distributor. I'll be getting rid of that for some GM coils here at some point, so that's pretty fancy. But the main difference that a lot of people go after is the serpentine belt setup on the alternator, which is pretty slick. For those of you with US Volkswagens, old stuff, you're used to seeing a bunch of different V-belts for AC, different V-belt for your alternator, all that stuff, and your crank pulley looks like it's got a million different V's in it. But now we've got a really nice serpentine setup with a little tensioner over here. So this will get simplified up, since obviously I'm not running AC and I'm not running that power steering pump, since I'm going with an electric power steering pump. So things get super clean once a lot of the stuff gets eliminated. But as far as normal 16 valve stuff goes, you're looking at the normal oil to coolant intercooler and block and head design all the same. We did notice on the lower piece around the oil pan, there's a little brace, kind of a U-shaped brace that goes around that. Once I tear this thing down, we'll get snap a couple photos of that. That's kind of odd. The oil pan, we're not really sure. It doesn't strike me as a standard US stamped steel oil pan. There's it's a little different. I mean, I don't want to say it's aluminum yet, but it's some weird cast piece it appears to be, so that's a little different too. I would rather run a steel one just to keep things sort of safe. So we'll walk around to the back and see what's different on the back here. Alright, so looking at the back of the ABF here, obviously you can see that the intake is a little different. You still have the same kind of brace that we had before, but once you look at the throttle body, you immediately see the throttle body is different. It's not that kind of weird, wonky, oval shape. It's an actual EFI throttle body with a nice throttle position sensor on it, and our throttle position sensor over here. And I think this is just throttle. Yeah, this is just the open-close switch that's we're all familiar with. The one huge difference we all immediately noticed was this heat shield here. Now, I don't really know why this was retrofitted, or not really retrofitted, but added on here for the Mark III. But this is totally different from anything we saw on the Mark II 16 valves. This is like some cast aluminum piece or something with this big heat shield hanging off the side of it, and that's actually really slick. I mean, you think about how old this engine is, this thing's still kind of hanging on. It looks a little ratty, but that's one heck of a heat shield. Behind that, we've got a totally different exhaust manifold, which is awesome. It's still the dual outlet like a lot of 16 valves have, but it looks tubular with some, like the tube gets crushed here, and it's still split apart, like right where it meets up with that. So you go into the same looking downpipe, but the manifold itself is a little different. Now remember that the US mechanical fuel injected 16 valves really only made about 135 horsepower. The ABFs made something around 150 stock, but even just with a single chip tune, you can get up around 170 horsepower, which is really why I went with this. I can get something pretty well stock, super reliable, and get about 170 horsepower out of a 2-liter 16 valve, which is really awesome. And honestly, more than can be said for my naturally aspirated all-wheel drive Subaru competitors, especially anybody with a 2-liter 16 valve Subaru engine. I know my buddy Matt Conti, we never saw that out of even the 2.2 liter with some cams we put in. It was still, we were lucky to be getting, much over 110, 120. I don't want to put a number on it, but my God, it was slow. Subaru puts all their time and money into turbo engines, but Volkswagen in the or the late 80s, early mid 90s, really spent some time developing this platform, this 16 valve engine, and I am excited to have one in the country and finally be running it in Project Syncro. So hope you guys enjoy the progress so far. I know I'm going to start tearing this thing down in future videos and get it cleaned up. It made great compression, so we don't have to worry about completely just tearing it down to the block, which, again, I've said this before, I've put so much work into the drivetrain. I am done with totally bespoke stuff for the time being, and I just want an engine that works. So with a little bit of time and effort, not a ton of time and effort, I can have a super clean ABF that's ready to rock. So keep an eye out on Project Syncro for engine updates finally, and maybe we can get this thing in the car pretty soon. So thanks, guys.